be your host for the webinar about Vision Zero in times of COVID-19, organized by the Global Vision Zero Business Council and the International ORP Foundation. There has been an overwhelming interest in joining this event, which counts about 660 registered participants. I warmly welcome you all and thank you for your interest to join us in addressing one of the most dramatic and unexpected global developments that within weeks has profoundly changed the way we work and the way we live. While we in the occupational safety and health community were busy addressing modern work-life challenges, such as mental health challenges or the impact of digitalization, a health threat as ancient as mankind, a rapidly spreading infection, has invaded our societies and our workplaces. But what is the exact impact of the pandemic on different sectors of industry and in different parts of the world? What does it mean for people in essential and non-essential industries, for white and for blue-collar workers? How does it affect individual behavior? What collective and person-centered prevention measures have companies taken and with which results? How will the new normal look like in terms of workplace prevention culture and our commitment to Vision Zero? Will the pandemic also provide opportunities for prevention? And in case it does, how can we sustain them? With this webinar, the Global Vision Zero Business Council and the International ORP Foundation would like to offer a platform to address some of these questions by sharing practical experiences and measures with the management of the pandemic from a company, from a workplace perspective. Let me briefly introduce us to host organizations. Here we go. So first of all, it's the Global Vision Zero Business Council, and the Business Council was formed on invitation by the International Social Security Association and its Secretary General in order to bring together Vision Zero companies and to offer a platform to exchange about practices and experiences that can help to reach Vision Zero. The Council was established in late 2018 and has agreed on certain principles, on certain objectives, which include its commitment, of course, to promote Vision Zero and this mindset in the business world that it believes that time has come for business actually to take the lead in developing a global prevention culture. It wants to offer a unique platform for exchange amongst Vision Zero companies. Wants to organize Vision Zero meetings and events, and it wants to cooperate with the ESA's Vision Zero campaign and with other Vision Zero councils on research, on training and consultancy. You can see at the bottom of the screen some of the companies that are included in the Vision Zero Business Council, and 4 of them will actually be represented by amongst the speakers today, and we look forward to their presentations. Here you can see how to contact the Council. It has a website, www.vzbusinessforum.com, and you're invited to visit that website, where you also find presentations from earlier meetings that can be of interest for all of you that are working towards Vision Zero. The other part is the International ORP Foundation, or FIOP. It's a non-profit organization that is committed to support companies in developing a healthy and sustainable business culture. It doesn't work alone. It's very closely linked to a research center at the Technical University of Catalonia. And it is, of course, also a registered partner of the Global Vision Zero campaign by the International Social Security Association. And the the FIOP organization, the foundation, has offered support from the very beginning to the council in many different ways, amongst others by hosting the website. So now that you know who is behind the organization of this webinar, just briefly let's address the program. So after my introduction, we will have 4 speakers, and I think that some of the speakers we will see in a second, who will be speaking about different aspects of the pandemic and pandemic management, representing different sectors and different experiences, and this diversity, I think, is the richness of this webinar. And after their presentations, we will have an opportunity to actually ask questions, and please, you are invited to do so during the webinar. Those of you that are familiar with the Zoom platform know that if you go to the bottom of the screen of the Zoom platform, there's actually a Q&A button that you can activate, and you can forward your question. In case you do so, please mention your name and your organization, and then your question or comment, and address it to the person or the persons that you would like to hear more about. So we really invite you to use this opportunity also for having a dialogue in spite of the virtual format of this meeting. So I would now like to invite our virtual master of the webinar master, who is Natalia Mendes. She is in Barcelona. Myself, I'm based in Bilbao, both of us in Spain. And if she would be so kind to present the speakers on the screen, that you also can see who is going to speak and act today besides myself. And I think this is the case. So I don't know how to do this, to give a virtual applause of welcome to the speakers, but I will do it from my side, so maybe you can join me. So welcome to the speakers, and my co-moderator, Estelia Nieto, who is going to join later and is going to manage the discussion, the question and answer session. So welcome to all of you. And well, like many of the audiences, you have been extremely busy over the past weeks. So I really would like to thank you on behalf of the organizers for your willingness to participate and to share your valuable insights into the pandemic management. So without further ado, I think it's time to start with the first presentation. And I'm pleased to introduce the speaker. And the first speaker is Christopher, or Chris, as he likes to be, Chris Venables, and he will speak to us on behalf of one of the essential industries, namely retail, which without interruption has continued to serve the day-to-day needs for food and other necessities of people during the pandemic. Chris is Group Safety Director at Tesco. He's based in the UK. So Chris, please share with us how you have managed to protect staff and customers, because they go side by side in your business during the pandemic, in your many facilities, both in the UK and overseas. So please, Chris, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Hans-Horst, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm just going to adjust my screen. 1 second. Hopefully you can all see that now. 1 second. And so good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for the kind introduction, Hans-Horst, as always. And it is a real pleasure to be here with everybody this afternoon and share some of our experiences. As Hans-Horst pointed out, I work for Tesco, who's a large food retailer, primarily based in the UK, but with operations all across the globe. So what I want to talk to you this afternoon about is a little bit around my experiences throughout this recent crisis, and also just point out, I think that these experiences are not necessarily unique to myself and unique to Tesco. They reflect the experiences of many of those in the food retail industry, and through conversations with my colleagues and peers across other businesses, I think we found ourselves all in exactly the same situation. So a little bit about Tesco. So we are a global business. We operate in a number of countries in terms of our frontline operation. We have around 440,000 direct employees. But importantly, we also reach across the entire globe in terms of our sourcing and our partnerships around the business, who we heavily rely upon. And added to that, being a frontline retailer, we also interact with around 80 million customers per week. So this recent crisis has really put us in the forefront of public expectation and need, and has been incredibly challenging. I'd like to break down my presentation into 4 simple phases, really, to take us on a little journey around of what we experienced in the early phases of the crisis, where we are now, and what we might see in the future, and how that might change our lives and our approach to the way that we both work and shop and interact with our customers. So in the first phase, the early indications, really, especially for those that do have global reach, came out of our Asian operations and through the knowledge that was coming back to us from the media. So there was a fairly early onset acknowledgement that there was this gathering pace around a potential crisis which could reach across the entire globe. And our first indications, as I say, were in Asia, but we felt it most heavily in the early stages in relation to our supply chain and the challenges and the difficulties that they were having. We found that it was incredibly helpful to reference our business continuity plans, which are well tried and tested, but it's that process that often isn't really tested in a live environment. So whilst we felt prepared, and I know colleagues of other retailers felt like they were prepared for something as significant as this, you could never properly predict the fallout of this pandemic would have on businesses, on communities, and on just social well-being. So it was incredibly helpful to have a reference point and be able to draw on at least some documented knowledge around how we ought to respond in such tough times. And we learned very early on that whilst we're a frontline retailer whose primary objective is to serve our customers and provide them with food for their families, actually sitting behind our operation, the value of the supply chain partners is absolutely crucial, and their own business continuity plans and their ability to continue to operate and provide our organization and other organizations in the retail sector with the products that they needed to just go about their daily lives. So we recognized very early on, and I'm a strong advocate for having some simple basic principles at the outset of a crisis such as this, so that the entire organization has a reference point to be able to guide it through what the objectives and the principles are that really set out your business approach. For us, they were very, very simple. They sat in 4 categories, which was providing food for all, so ensuring that we don't discriminate and that everybody has access to food. Placing safety first, right at the heart of everything that we do for both our colleagues and our customers. Recognizing that we need to support our colleagues as we go through this experience, because they will be experiencing all of the same challenges as all of us, you know, they have challenges at home, they bring them to work, they have challenges at work, and that's incredibly stressful and demanding on people. And also our place in the community. So we recognized very early on that a lot of people were heavily reliant on our ability to continue to provide consistent service for them in very, very difficult times. As the awareness around the potential pandemic developed, before governments actually stepped in and introduced lockdown measures and restrictions, we saw an awful lot of panic buying, which placed an incredible amount of pressure on the organization. And we saw some interesting things out of that panic buying. It tended to be, there's a sort of common understanding across the retail sector that those that were stocking up tended to come from a more affluent background. And of course, the result of that placed additional pressure on those that are less fortunate and have less funds to be able to stockpile their groceries and the goods that they need. So we had to step in, as did many other retailers across the globe, to start to limit and place restrictions on certain items, just so that we can guarantee that you know, our first principle, that we could provide food for all, was upheld. And then governments around the globe very quickly stepped in to demonstrate the benefits of social distancing measures and provided us with guidelines around what that should look like in each setting. We took a lot of guidance from the WHO and in the UK from Public Health England, which thankfully were aligned, and we established some very, very complex social distancing measures across our organisation to ensure that both our colleagues and our customers felt safe and were safe as they went about their normal weekly shop. In the third phase, as the lockdown started to embed itself across the globe, the real challenge has been around people and ensuring that if you're going to provide that continuity of trade to our customers, that you need your people to be able to do that. But as I said earlier, our people are subject to exactly the same challenges as everybody else. So there was large swathes of people across the globe who find themselves having to self-isolate, or they become sick. And then our ability to continue to operate in the normal way was diminished. So we had to embark on a significant recruitment campaign in Tesco, and you know, the response from the public has been overwhelming, and it has really helped us to provide that continuity of trade, because we've been able to offset those absences with new recruits. But from a safety perspective, that obviously puts an awful lot of pressure when you're recruiting that volume of people in a short period of time on your training and induction processes. The second phase, the second part of the third phase was around ensuring that we retained some level of legal compliance. So our governments were providing us with guidance documents, and we were able to work very, very closely with government to ensure that they understood our operation and what would work best for us. And I think in any crisis like this, the thing that I would say has been most helpful has been our ability as an organisation to track that change and ensure that all of the normal safety practices and procedures that you would expect to see in place in a normal operating business were retained. So taking decision logs, being front of foot with all of the decision makers in the business, documenting change and ensuring that things are risk assessed appropriately to ensure that people are safe and you retain the right level of legal compliance. And in the third phase, it became very apparent that whilst we were able to continue to trade in our stores, there was a population of people who were less fortunate in their ability to go to a store, or they'd been classified as vulnerable customers because of their age or because of their any personal illness that they may already have. So we needed to reach out to them, and we, you know, our fourth pillar, being there for our communities, has really come to the fore, and we've been able to support over 300,000 vulnerable customers in the UK and deliver to their homes. So in the final phase, and the reflection part for me is around what does all of this mean for us, and what impact has it had on our business and our people. Clearly at the forefront has been the mental well-being of our colleagues and the long-term impact that this change has had upon them, and the additional expectations that we're placing on people, and ensuring that we're giving them the right support, advice, guidance, and access to the right tools to be able to ensure that they retain their level of mental well-being, and that they're not emotionally affected by the challenges that they've faced throughout this crisis and the potential long-term impact of that. So we've seen some real benefit from that, and I know colleagues are really grateful for the work that has been done around supporting them from the mental health perspective, and really focusing on their well-being. The second part is really around how do we, as a community of safety professionals, harness the positives from this crisis, because we've seen such significant change, and the world has shifted on its axis like we've never in our generations ever seen before. And there are some real positives that have come out of this. So I've seen significant reductions in accident rates in our world, and I know that other retailers and other businesses have seen the same, and much of that can be down to the behavioral change of the people that shop with us and the people that work with us, by establishing social distancing measures and people being almost nudged into being more conscious of their environment. They found themselves being more safe. And I think that is something that we need to embrace as a community, and look for opportunities to ensure that we can carry that through into the future. And then finally, I think my final point would be around how do we adapt to this new social norm, take the positives out of this situation. It has the potential to change our attitudes and beliefs for an entire generation, and we need to adapt to that change and not just expect things to return to how they were, because many people believe that they won't. But let's focus on the positives that come out of that, and retain our resilience, and we can all, I'm sure, get through these difficult times. So that was it from me, Hans Horst. I'll stop sharing my.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Chris, for I think your very well structured presentation, which gave us really an insight into, in a way, what's behind what we meet almost every day, where we still could go shopping, and to see how complex the impact of the pandemic has actually been on your business. I'm very impressed by the way that you, your colleagues, your organization has reacted to it at a global scale, the way that you actually have taken your role, now your essential role, providing foodstuff and other basic needs during this time of crisis, which helped the rest of the population, us who are confined, in a way to believe in that there's a future, because in the older days, this was not secured, that food and other stuff was actually secured, the supplies were secured. So this helped the whole community the whole society in a way to cope with the crisis. I am also very grateful for your analysis, and in particular, I've noted the outlook, the positive outlooks that you have kind of described, and I'm sure we're going to come back to that. And when we heard from colleagues from other sectors and at the discussion at the end, to see whether this crisis actually also bring about something good. The attention that is now devoted to prevention, the role of the individual, as well, of course, of the company and the leadership of the company, that this actually can help us to develop also a new normal for prevention culture. So thank you very much. I'm sure there will be lots of questions for you. So thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you, everybody.
So, with this, I have the pleasure now to introduce our next speaker, and he is Lars Hoffmann. And Lars is the head of EHS, Environment, Health and Safety Expert Center at Siemens, and he's based in Germany. And well, I've asked him to share with us his experiences in managing the pandemic in, as you will learn, a very complex business environment, taking into account Siemens' very, very diverse portfolio of products and services on the one hand, and its presence in almost all countries in the world. So Lars, we look forward to your presentation. The floor is yours.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
And I hope you also see my presentation. Can you see the screen, the presentation? Here we go. Can you see the presentation now?
Yes, perfect.
Perfect. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for the introduction, Hans-Horst. And also thanks for getting the opportunity to talk about our challenges in regard to the pandemic. Before I go into the details, I just would like to give you an overview about our company to get an understanding how complex we are as an organization. So I guess more or less all of you know the company, at least by name. We are around about 385,000 employees all over the world, and we are one of the leading companies in electrification, automatization, and digitalization. But we are doing also other things. So here you see an overview what we are doing. For instance, we are in the gas and power business, for instance, gas turbine power plants. We have wind farms. We have a business which is called smart infrastructure, building technologies, traffic infrastructure, etc., etc. We have digital industries, which is dealing mainly with automatization. And then we have so-called strategic companies where we have mobility as a standalone company, Siemens Gamesa, and of course, Healthineers. And underneath you see that, of course, all these companies have to be served financial-wise, etc., etc., real estate-wise, so that we have in parallel, of course, organizations to support these companies. So here you see, or here you get an idea how we are spread all over the world. We are, I guess, in around about 200 countries or even more present. And now you can imagine what it means bringing all these different types of businesses together with 200 different countries, and especially in times of the pandemic crisis. Within the next couple of minutes, I would like to give you a brief overview about some key challenges we are facing at the moment, and to also give you some ideas what we are doing. The biggest challenge in these times, and I guess this is the same for you, of course, is, I mentioned it because it's not mentioned here, is to protect people from getting infected. We have a golden rule in Siemens saying whoever works for the company, and no matter whether it is own employees or partners or contractors, however you want to call it, has to go home healthily and safely at the end of the day, period. And this is a specific challenge in the time of the COVID-2 pandemic crisis. The first challenge is, and this is of course not exhaustive, this list, this is just an exception, an extract, sorry, is realization. At one point of time, a lot of terms were flooding around in the media, and one was of course lockdown. There were other terms like social distancing, but there was one keyword, one term, which was called lockdown. I said, okay, if it really comes to lockdown, what does it mean for us as a global organization with 400,000 people and thousands of customers all over the world? Can we really lock down our factories, our offices, and send the people home? I mean, it is slightly different if you have a small bookstore where you close the door, shut it down, and people go home. But this is something, of course, we cannot do. And within a couple of minutes, I tell you why we can't do it. So what happened was, at this point of time, the corporate crisis team of Siemens sat together and said, okay, we need to have a global strategy how to tackle and how to deal with this pandemic crisis, which is, of course, quite generic. But our organization needs clear guidance coming from the top of the company, from the managing board. And this is what they did. So they developed a global guidance on how we are going to deal with this pandemic crisis. And this has been handed over, of course, to the respective countries, because it is important that they also, say, adapt it to the local needs and requirements of the respective countries. We know that the risk areas were different all over the world, that we have different legal requirements, etc., that we have different cultures and attitudes and behaviors in the countries. This all has to be included into the country-specific guideline, which then afterwards has to be broken down, of course, to a site level. So this is what the corporate crisis team did and is still doing. Of course, they monitor every day what is happening around the globe and how is it affecting and impacting our company to finally adapt it then as soon as possible. Next thing was communication. We quickly established a communication campaign, starting from tone of the top, of course. So we are using right now different communication channels. We have an internal video channel, for instance, where the managing board spreads messages around the globe. We have an internal social media platform called Yammer, for instance, where we post all of the actual changes that are continuously going on. We have newsletters, we have FAQs on our websites where people can get answers to their questions, for instance, etc., etc. So it's a bunch of different forms and types and channels of communication and media. This is the internal part. What is really, really important is also the external communication, because companies like we are seen sometimes as a lighthouse or as a benchmark. And a lot of people are looking around and see what are the other ones doing? What are the big companies with a global presence are doing? How do they deal with it? Maybe we can learn from it. And the other thing is, of course, if you have, for instance, factories in a country and next to you in the same area are also factories from other companies, and suddenly they shut down. Yeah, immediately questions are raising up internally, externally. Why is one factory shut down and the other one is still running? And you have to have answers, because you will be asked by the local media, by your own employees, etc., etc. So this is something you shouldn't underestimate. Very important internal, external communication on time. So then, of course, continuation, since we cannot shut down all of our factories because we have critical processes in place. We have equipment that can't be shut down overnight. We are serving public critical infrastructure like mobility, traffic light systems, railway systems. We are building trains. We are doing service in hospitals, in the healthcare business. We are doing services on automation technology in the food industry, for instance. And we just heard it from Chris that people still need to eat, need to be served, whatever it is. is dependent on our technology. So we have to make sure that we identify the critical processes and business areas, and to keep it finally up and running. And this is where the journey starts. Yeah? The first decision is who can stay home and who has to go back to work in the factory. This is a very sensitive topic because people could get the impression that some people are, let's say, advanced and some others have to go back to work. So continuation of business critical process, very important topic for us. Then, of course, support managers and employees to master this emergency mode. We shouldn't forget they have a daily business anyway. And now on top comes the crisis now. And we are trying to do everything we can, technology-wise, resource-wise, etc., to support our people. We know they have hard times and the day very often doesn't have 8 hours anymore. But on the other hand, we have to make sure that we keep the resources. They are our most important asset. So we are trying to support them as much as possible, no matter whether it is social counseling, well-being activities, whatever it is. Yeah, IT infrastructure. Overnight, we sent home, I don't know how many 10,000s of employees from one day to the other. And it is very important that they have, if you say you're working from home now, that they have the right infrastructure and equipment in place. So overnight or over the weekend, for instance, just to give you an example, we let's say upscaled our concurrent users from 30,000 to 150,000. Yeah, and this has to do with the local infrastructure, IT infrastructure, digitalization, but it also has to do with the right tools. Just having a computer at home is unfortunately not sufficient. You have to have the right tools in place, like Zoom, like Circuit, like Microsoft Teams, or any other kind of tool where people have the chance to work from home and work together. So right now, one of the biggest topics is how does the strategy look like from the lockdown, in brackets here, into a back to normal, whatever normal means at the end of the day. Is normal the normal that we had a couple of weeks, months ago, or is there a new normal because of the pandemic impact? We don't know yet. But what we know is that we need to have a solid strategy to get back from the lockdown into the normal business. And it starts with the question, so how do we get the people back to work? Are we doing it all at once, for instance? We have sites with 8,000, 10,000 people. So now you can imagine if on a Monday morning you open just the gates and you say it's the same like we had a couple of weeks ago. No, it's not, because we have so-called frame conditions, circumstances to consider, like the social distancing. We have to keep the distance, 1.5, 2 meters, whatever it is at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. But we have certain conditions to consider when we start to bring people back to work. Or look at the office buildings. You have elevators. So how many people can you transport per hour in the elevators back into the different floors? You can't do it all at once. You need to do it step by step, for instance. But this is an impact. This has an impact on how many people can back work at a certain period of time. Or the canteen. If you say you have to keep the distance also in the canteens, you can't serve 5,000, 6,000, 8,000 people in the canteens anymore. It doesn't work. So it has to be very, very careful if you think about bringing people back into the office or into the factories or into the service activities. So then, based on the strategy, you need to have implementation at site level, of course, because all the sites are different. Even if you say we have 20 factories in one country, they are all different because of the different circumstances, of the building types, of the workplace types, etc., etc. So at the end of the day, it stays at a local level to get ready once you say, okay, we are going back to, or we bring back people to work. One topic that is challenging us right now, and I guess you have similar experience, is the global sourcing. It's not just raw material and parts. It is especially the personal protective equipment, mainly masks. There's a flood coming from Asia for the time being. And we realize more and more that there are fake certificates and fake masks available. So we have implemented a quality check and internal for the documents together with customs, for instance. And we are also doing quality checks and even professional tests with DEKRA or TÜV or other institutions to make sure that if people are using PPE at work, at least, we have to make sure that it is correct. Yeah, and finally, we have to think about what kind of impact will the pandemic have in general on the economy and the society, and of course our own organization. And at the right point of time, we have to make sure that whenever there's a sustainable impact that we get adjusted, not just work-wise, but also mentally-wise. It will have, of course, an impact to the way we work together in the future, and we have to make sure that we have our people ready to do so. So just to give you an example that we do a lot of initiatives. I'm not going into the details right now, from FAQ until how to lead in times of crisis, IT recommendations, how to work from home effectively, efficiently, etc., etc. So this is just a very few examples what we are going to do and what we are still doing. I'm out of time now, and I'm done, Hans-Horst. Hans-Horst, I can't hear you because yes, now I can hear you.
Okay, thank you also for the excellent timekeeping and for sharing with us why you have been so busy over the past weeks. Because when I called you to ask you whether you have an opportunity to be with us today, you said, well, you're up 16 hours almost every day and dealing with all these issues. And as I said, it's really a very, very complex challenge that you have. And thank you for also giving the examples on how you try to do this. I took in particular note of that top management again was involved and from the beginning sent out these guidelines, but did it wisely by opening up for a local adaptation, because we also know that the way things have been handled from governments have been quite different. Now here in Spain has been different from Germany and from the UK and from other countries. There's also different phasing of the pandemic that needs to be taken into consideration.
One note, we have a specific challenge, you know that also from Germany, because we have 16 different states within Germany. They are all slightly different. So even the same business of our organization in Germany has differences.
Yeah. No, but it's really complex, and you have to manage very different settings, as from critical businesses that have to be running all the time to others where you have to have this phased return to work, which is of course very complicated with the sheer numbers of staff you have in your offices, and then to make sure that they are safe. So thank you once again very much for sharing, also to be quite open about these challenges, that this is something that came, we were unexpected and had to be managed. But I think that Siemens' philosophy, I think helped that you already were prepared in terms of the mindset, that you knew your top management had to act and send a clear message, and then that you have to use your strengths, so to say, in terms of communication, of reaching out, and that there is already a kind of a positive work culture and prevention culture in your business. So once again, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So the next speaker is Jose Manuel Balinote Carrasco, and I hope we will have him on the screen also. Here he is. Hello, Jose Manuel. And Jose Manuel is a health and safety manager at Acciona in Spain, and he's going to explain us what his company covers. but it's a totally different sector again. As I said, we wanted to achieve a diversity in terms of sectors and experiences. And he would share with us also, like we heard a bit from Lars already, which measures his company has taken to secure a safe reactivation of, amongst others, construction works. Because in Spain, there has been a 2-week total lockdown of all non-essential activities, so which has caused a lot of challenges for businesses, and especially also because there is now this pressure of reopening, getting the economy going, because there is not just a health crisis, it's also an economic crisis, and the fears that it will turn into a severe social crisis because of that are everywhere. So, so therefore, we're very happy to have you here with us, Jose Manuel, and please, the floor is yours to explain how your company has been dealing with the pandemic.
Okay, thanks, Hans. Well, I'm gonna share. I think can you see now the presentation?
Yeah, but you need to open still the presentation on the page itself, but we can see it.
Okay, perfect.
If you click on
yes.
Yeah, perfect. It's all done.
Okay. Well, first of all, I would like to start saying thank you to Vision Zero and the ORP Foundation to give us the opportunity to share the experience that we are having with the COVID-19 management. First of all, I would like just to do a quick briefing of our company. In this case, well, we define us as a sustainable company. Just, we have always the sustainable development goals in all the projects that we develop in the infrastructure solutions and the energy projects. We are working currently in more than 40 countries around the world with almost 40,000 employees. So yes, again, the situation that we are facing with the COVID-19, of course, not just change with the country, even with the different business, no, that we have. I'll try to explain you. Although we are going to be focusing in the construction, as Hans already said. Okay, part of the company is called infrastructure, where I'm working. Okay, and here is where we have different businesses. It can be construction, again, where I said that we are going to be focusing in the presentation, industrial, water, service, and concessions. Sorry. So yeah, it makes, we can say, difficult, no, this management of the crisis, taking into account that, for example, there are businesses that they need to keep running even during the pandemic, and others, as for example, the construction that we're going to see now, so they need to close and then reopen, no, with all the consequences that thing can have. Before I share with you a quick guideline of our protocol that we have developed for the construction sites, I would like to we can say, be sure that all of you understand the situation in this case that we have in Spain, no, in the past, in this case, 6 weeks, that to be honest seems like months, okay, because days are being long since the start of this crisis. So the first lockdown in Spain started the 14th of March, as you can see, and well, in that lockdown, almost all our activities remain open. Although it's true that, of course, the production was clearly reduced because of all the restrictions that the government put on place. For example, that some people cannot travel from one state to another. So that's, of course, will have an impact in the production. Okay, on that time, we developed a protocol specific for every business that we said. In this case, to protect the health and safety of our employees, including our collaborators in the pandemic. To be honest, it was the hardest one, the first one, and but not because it was the first one. It's more because on that time, again, that is like six weeks ago. That again seems like months, but on that time we didn't really have enough information on the virus. It was something new. It's true that everyone was speaking about it, but one organization said this, other organizations said the other thing. So it was a situation that, in this case, it was hard for us to put everything together and develop a protocol. But okay, in this case, we did it until, in this case, the second lockdown, started the 29th of March, where it was, we can say, more restricted than the first one. It's the one that Hans made reference, where all non-essential and essential activities were closed. Just, for example, hospitals or infrastructure maintenance remain open. So as we have some of that activities in our business, we update the protocol to include a continuity plan. Because sometimes, for example, in a construction site, if you have several cases of COVID, it is always an option to say, okay, we close the site for 2 weeks and we will be back when we are 100% sure that employees are healthy. But there are activities where that is not possible. They need to keep running even in this situation. So in this case, we develop a continuity plan to be sure that even in the worst case scenario, that activities will keep running. And then the third lockdown, that is the one that we currently are, similar to the first one, where most of our activities were reactivated. But as you can imagine, a very big difference. We are speaking that we are telling our employees after 2 weeks that they cannot even go out of their home to come back to work. They can come to work, or they can work in this case, but they cannot even go to the park with their children. So that's create a situation that needs another update of the previous protocol that we did, and we are gonna, in this case, start to check. This is just a quick guideline of the protocol. We are gonna just see the main points, in this case being focused in the main ones regarding the reactivation of the construction activities. As you can see, we divide in 4: the welcoming, access control, the site organization, and of course the COVID-19 emergency plan, so in case a positive or a possible case is detected on site. I would like to start with the first part, welcoming. And we really call it welcoming because it needs to be really a welcoming. Okay, again, we are speaking that we are telling employees to come back to work after 2 weeks when they cannot even go out of their house. So this is hard to explain to an employee that it's safe to be working with 500 people at the same time, but not safe to, again, go to the park to have a walk. So as Chris already said, here is where I would like to make reference to the 2 phases that this crisis could have. The first one that is clear, is the management of the risk of infection or reduction of the spread of the virus. And the other side that is, in my opinion, even same or even more important, that is the psychological effect that this crisis could produce in our employees. So yes, we need to train them in this case, in this part of the protocol, but we need to also welcome them, be sure that they understand, first of all, that this virus, we are going to win this battle in this case if we all work together. Okay, because at the end, if one employee of that 500, as an example, don't follow the protocol, it will be like a house of cards. Okay, you will take one and all the site will shut down in this case. So going to the other point, the access control, and this is an important one. Okay, we need to be sure that we check the temperature to detect, in this case, fever, and then the symptoms in the access control, because it is the point where we can stop the virus to enter to the workplace. Okay, once we allow 1, 2, 3 employees with symptoms enter in the workplace, is where the situation can be totally chaos, because as you know, as you are aware, this virus can spread easily. So once it is inside, it's difficult to stop it. Okay, once we have the fever and the symptoms control on place, we need also to have a daily statement. Okay, and it's related with the welcoming. We need to be sure that all our employees understand that, again, one failure, I mean, one employee with the illness enter the workplace, that means that not just one, like a few of that employees can be infected. Okay, so we need to be sure that in this case, in this daily statement, Although it is in this case enter in the private life, we need to ask them if they have a previous contact with a confirmed case. So in this case, that person will need to be checked by or in this case, to do a medical evaluation to be sure that, okay, that the person has not the illness, so they can keep working, okay? And again, this needs to be done on a daily basis. If we go to the other part of the protocol, in this case, the site organization, we create a new figure. We call it COVID-19 coordinator, and we need to ensure that at every workplace, doesn't matter how small it is, we need to have this person appointed to be sure that we have a two-way channel communication with the crisis committee that we have implemented in every country where we are working. Okay. Of course, other thing that if possible, because right now it's hard to find in the market, and as also Lars was saying, it's not just hard. Sometimes some of the tests that you can buy are not really proper tests, so it's even worse the solution, because it gives you an information that is not real. But anyway, if we are trying to get as much as we can, and we are testing, in this case, our employees to be sure that we have that information before the illness spread in our workplace. Another important point, and is related with the PPE needed to fight the spread of the virus. In this case, as Lars already said, and this is happening worldwide, we have a problem with the supply of masks, mostly because gloves, yes, we can have more, but we have a problem with the mask. So what we did, and we always have on mind, is that we need to have a criteria of when the PPE is mandatory, when it's recommended. Something that it is hard because currently things change. No, one day we have some organizations saying that the mask is mandatory. On the other side, we have other associations that they don't want to say because they are worried that the medical system will have a problem with their supplies, no? And when it's the priority right now. So at least with this criteria, we define what activities must have the PPE with no option. I mean, if it is not, because sometimes if there is not PPE available, then that activity must be cancelled, must be postponed until the PPE arrive to the site. Okay. I will explain in the conclusion another thing that we did regarding PPE. But first of all, also I would like to highlight this point: the vulnerable employees. As you know, there are some people that are more vulnerable, not to get the illness, more to have, we can say serious consequence. In this case, we can have people older than 60 years old, pregnancy, people with previous health issues, more related with the lungs. Okay, so it is so important to find and detect these employees, because of course, if they can keep working from home, they must keep working at home. And in case they cannot, because the activities is incompatible, then a medical evaluation needs to be done to be sure that, okay, that this person can come back to work, or needs to keep at home until we can say the level of the spread of the virus gets to another level. And finally, as I said, important to have always a emergency plan for in case we have a positive on site. And being the most important part, in this case, the isolation of that employee, and of course, the follow-up of the medical protocol to go to the hospital, check if it's positive or negative. It is important that after we do that, we need to be sure that we have an evaluation of all employees that have a close contact with that employee, because immediately all that employees need to go on quarantine. Even also the casual contact, because sometimes the difference between a close contact and casual contact is so small. So also we need to take into account that casual contact with that employee. And of course, identify the affected areas, because it needs to be a disinfection, in this case, needs to be done to be sure that the virus is not in any surface of the of the workplace. Sometimes this is hard, and sometimes requires to disinfect the whole workplace to be sure that the virus is not there. Okay. I don't know if I'm being a little bit quick, maybe, Hans, but you know, I can enter more in detail if I have time. I don't know how long I still have, but just to finish, no, as conclusion, as also as an advice, okay, for everyone that is listening, no, and maybe they're finding answers. That's sorry, but sometimes the answers just are good for a few days until the situation changes. That's the reason that the first thing that I would like to recommend is the flexibility. Okay, we are managing a really complex situation that we never need to, that change continuously, and we need to adapt, and we need to do it quickly. Okay, so flexibility is something that we need to have on mind, something that my colleagues in this case from Tesco and Siemens can say is hard in a big international company, no, to be flexible. But anyway, this crisis needs that. Also, just to remark, the employees' health evaluation in the access control. Again, access control is where we can stop the virus to enter in our workplace. So we need to be sure that we do as much as we can. Okay, even as much as we can, it can be not enough. So checking temperature, checking symptoms, like the daily statement, everything that we can do, it will be good to you can say, to stop the virus to enter in the workplace. Also important, remember the two phases of the crisis, not just being focused in the, you can say, in the management of the risk infection, but also in the psychological effect, okay, the mental well-being that we need to take into account, because again, if we don't take into account this part, the management of the risk infection will not work, because employees will not really follow what we are telling them. Okay, information is key, and it's key because as much information as we have, as better decision we can take. Okay, again, if we need to do it quickly, we need information, and that information needs to arrive to the crisis committee as soon as possible. So this is the reason that we appointed, as I said, the COVID-19 coordinator, in order to ensure that at any moment, if it is an incident, doesn't matter in what workplace, that information will arrive immediately to the crisis committee. Another advice, well, the PPE centralized budgeting. We did that in Spain. Okay, what we do is all the business that we are working in Spain, we put together, we check how much PPE we need for the following 6 months, and we did a huge, in this case, purchase of PPE. That will give you, of course, if you put, and this is clear, in the situation that we currently have in the market, where again it's a lack of mask, you will have more options if you go to the market and say, I want to buy 5 million of masks, that if I go to the market and I said I want 2,000. Okay, so it is good to centralize as much as you can all the PPE, the budgeting for this crisis, and then also making reference to the words that Lars said about the quality. No, we also had that issue with some of the PPE that came from Asia. Okay, that they have fake certificates. At least if you do it centralized, what you do is you detect the issue before the PPE arrives to the site, so we can say you stop the use of that PPE even before the employees start to use it. Okay, and just to finish, no, again, just to highlight the close contact evaluation after a confirmed case is the only way to be sure that the break the spread chain of the virus. So I know that sometimes it's hard, but we need to evaluate and put in quarantine all employees that may have close contact with a confirmed case. Okay, and yes, I don't know if I did it on time, Hans. I hope so. And thank you again for giving us the opportunity to be here. And again, if I maybe was a little bit quick in the presentation, don't hesitate to ask any question at the end of all the presentations.
Well, thank you very much indeed, José Manuel, for giving us this insight into focusing on the construction part of your business. I know you have others, but I thought it was interesting because it's something that happens also globally, and in particular this restart that you had to face now, because it was totally locked down. People were at home, and it's clear when they have been at home in kind of confinement and then asked to go back to work, of course all the measures you have taken are necessary to also gain their trust now in you as employers, that you actually take care of their situation, because everybody is basically scared now of this virus and afraid not only for him or herself, but also for relatives or neighbors or others. I think there's a very strong sense of solidarity feeling in the Spanish society today, and I think this is something that's important. So thank you very much for sharing with us your protocol, which I think are very systematic and try to really manage these different situations. Although it must be quite a challenge now to such short term to train the COVID-19 coordinators now to have everything in place. And I'm sure we'll come back to that during the question and answer session. But thank you so very much, and also for introducing your company to many people that might not know you yet. So thank you very much for that. Excellent.
Thank you.
So with this, we come to our last speaker, Gianluca Capodimonte. He is head of environmental and occupational sustainability at Philip Morris International. He's based in beautiful Switzerland. I had the pleasure to live there for almost 13 years. So very close, no? Each side of the lake, in Geneva, you're in Lausanne. So thank you also to you for sharing your experiences. We look forward to learn from you what effects the pandemic has on your company and what immediate measures you've introduced to successfully manage these risks. And I know that you'll be focusing also on very practical aspects that relate also to what Lars earlier has mentioned, bringing people back to office work and what to do actually logistically in securing the physical distancing and other demands. But also reflecting about what does it actually mean for the health and safety services and for people? What does it mean for prevention and our way of thinking in prevention? So we really look forward to your thoughts. So the floor is yours, Gianluca.
Thank you, Antors. So good afternoon, everyone. So the situation was pretty much interesting. Maybe you know already Philip Morris International is a very large tobacco company. We have 3,000 plus employees all across the world. We cover 880 countries with our products. We have some leading brands in the top 15. We have already 6 leading brands, and we have a mission. So we want to stop selling cigarettes because we would like to replace cigarettes with something with potential reduced risk for the consumers. Say that, we had a very fantastic life in EHS. So I like to be always in contact with my colleagues working in the different factories in Europe. And I have also one in Asia, in Korea. And suddenly we saw that the life was pretty much strange for us. I wanted to start with a quote because when I've been asked to prepare this presentation from the point of view of the EHS professional, I always believed that the job of EHS professional was complicated, but I didn't experience yet the COVID-19. So suddenly we found all the factories, all the companies in a high risk profile, even if from your risk assessment, maybe you didn't perceive it to be so dangerous, so high risk activities. So in most of the cases, maybe you had your emergency preparedness pandemic event section. We had something from H1N1, so the swine flu. We tried to understand how it was put together, what we did in the past. Fortunately, in 2015, the situation was totally different. And we realized that the current situation was for real. That time we were prepared, but we didn't activate the plan. Now we realize that we had to be fast, taking decisions in a very, let's say, changing environment. Every day there is a new decree, there is a new legislation, a new restriction. We have been pretty lucky because more than half of our factories didn't stop. So of course we had to reshuffle the activities, but we have been able in most of the cases with a very small, let's say, stop to get prepared to continue the business. Because we were thinking also, okay, this is an emergency, but also later on, we need to think the impact on the communities where we are operating. If we jeopardize the business, if we put jobs in danger. So there was really time for difficult decisions. So we started to look first into our factories, but immediately after to the families of our employees, providing with support, psychological support programs, entertainment, because suddenly we saw that we have kids at home and we need to take care of them to facilitate the life of the remote workers. Of course, it was also important to help the communities. So providing support, in this case, could be PPEs. We started to produce hand sanitizer because we have experience with flavoring, handling alcohol. We try to reinvent some of the activities that we were doing because reorganizing the factory was also meaning having more time to do other things because we had to stop unnecessary functions, and we dedicated these resources to help the others. So this means involving the scientists that we have in our team, because we have more than 400 scientists working on new solutions, try to understand what is behind the, I don't know, rapid COVID-19 test to see how we can take benefit out of this new kits available, how much reliable they are. So we started to put together experts from different fields. And this job that is always complicated has been enriched with a lot of understanding, learning about the new reality that we were facing. So I took two factories to explain what is different, how we start to have a quick response. I took Korea and Italy. So, and it's very emblematic because I remember we had a trip that we canceled in a rush to go to Korea for a large meeting, because this was beginning of February when the situation started to become really serious. And in Italy, we still believe that, this is only an Asian issue. This will never touch Europe. So as you can see, we have been quite fast in putting in place a temperature control at the entrance, revising the cleaning protocol to disinfect all the common areas where we are touching common parts like buttons in the lift, handlebars. Very soon we saw some clever usage of the 3D printing to create handlebars that don't need your hands to be opened. So also when you go to the floor, operating a business, a process without touching machines, we have touch screens, we have buttons, we have end tools. So we started to define protocol to avoid that we are infecting each other because we are touching the tools or the machines with people potentially infected, because as you already know, I think that we are all experts in this virus. There are many people without symptoms that are infectious. So it's very difficult to detect at the entrance because they don't have any symptoms. So in Korea, we started to see that places like a canteen became one of the worst area to manage and one of the most dangerous. So I don't believe that any of the EHS professionals in this call are putting the canteen as the high risk area in their factory. And this was in reality what happened very soon. So we started to segregate the area to create flows inside the corridors, stop using share cutleries, and then, as you see here in Korea, putting barriers, physical barriers between peoples in order to ensure that we can keep the distance, we can consume our meals that are not served anymore in the same way, but we are going with the lunch boxes. We were eliminating buffet and anything that you can do by yourself. So personal hygiene, dispenser messages about how to protect yourself and the others came out everywhere in any location with training explanations. And there was a big, let's say, rush to provide everybody with hand sanitizers. So visual material communication, I heard also from my colleagues from the other companies, it's fundamental, it's key. Especially when the communication is coming from so many different sources. Media, we go back home on television, we hear again about the virus, the outbreak and so on. So it's fundamental to generate some clarity, because overloading people with information that sometimes can be conflicting, misleading, could be again a mistake. And this is also a challenge for the EHS professional, because whatever you put in place maybe there will be somebody that will challenge you. It's interesting, but it's also additional stress for the organization. So it means that even if we are in a rush, if we are working under pressure, we have to find always the best solution. And we need to be able to explain the rationale behind the decisions that we made to avoid that there is no big response from our people. So also the way we are organizing entrance, exit is changing dramatically. So segregation everywhere, again, temperature check, also a simple thing like badging our time at attendance becomes something that you need to re-explain. You need to redesign because it's not as simple as it was before. So basic services like going to the shop floor, accessing the locker rooms. So we need to reorganize the space because as we saw before, distancing is key, preventing the spread of the virus is key, and a simple mistake might have a big impact on the entire community working in the factory. So those are a few quick examples about how we need to reorganize the life of the people. Again, in the common areas, everything is done through different flows. We decided to do this compartmentalization of the factory, assign colors, codes to the employees to avoid that they're mixing. So the way you enter the factory, the way you exit, people don't meet each other. And in some communities like the one in Italy, it was very difficult because we are social animals. In some countries like Spain, like in Italy, maybe we are a bit more social than average, and this is now an issue. So we had to re-educate our behaviors to cope with the new reality. So, and you see a bit of examples. So we explain how the areas are divided, how important it is that people don't mix each other. Because in this case, when we have a confirmed case, it's much easier to do the tracking back, understand who might be impacted. We are much faster in going to the place, doing the sanification, isolate the people, and this would give, of course, a better chance to avoid cross-contamination and also less impact on the business. So preparing to the new normal, what will be new? For sure, one of the big learning was people, the humankind gives the best when we are under big challenges. And I saw Italians behaving like Swiss people, adopting new behaviors very fast. This is not a bias, so I'm Italian, so I know quite well how we behave. But it was a surprise to see the sense of solidarity, how to help each other, the sense of responsibility. And I saw many dreams that as EHS professionals we have. So like a quick response to a new guidelines, new instruction, new rule, it was hyper fast. For sure, the risk perception this time was much bigger than when we try to explain why it's good to wear gloves or rather PPEs in normal situation. This time, I think the perception of the risk helped a lot. And there are many things that we should take as a learning for the time being, because the time being will be something like that. We need to redesign our social life. And this is what we are teaching. And this is an example from Italy. Things that before were part of the culture, part of staying together, also creating team spirits that are going to disappear. So keeping distances, what it means, that also in some case, half a meter more, half a meter less can make a big difference. And again, how we move inside the factory, how all the signage, all the new rules that we are putting in place will change our life, and we need to adapt fast. Because as I mentioned before, one small mistake can end up with a big impact on the health of our people. So considering that in this situation where in Italy, for example, the country is in lockdown, but there are still business running, we are in a situation like in the old asbestos factories, that you are taking your illness to home. In this case, could be also vice versa, because I hope that people will keep behaving the same way when they are back home. But if we don't behave correctly, we have a double responsibility because we are going to spread the virus to our families, to our beloved. So again, in the Asian society, the use of the mask was well accepted. And it's amazing to see how now also in our factories in Western Europe, in Latin America, Canada, these behaviors are becoming common. So those are simple things, that there are activities that will be performed in pair, but they will be different. So we need to adopt new behaviors, because the life, at least for the next future, will be a bit different. So again, communicating these basic rules that are fundamentals together with organizational measures will help us to be safer. And then again, as I mentioned before, the reorganization of the space, the reorganization of the work processes. There are teams that are really putting upside down the way we are producing now, to be sure that this can be done in the safest way. So entrance, exit, access to common areas, as you can see, has been totally redesigned, and more will come. So one of the tools that we started to trigger immediately, because what we learned in this experience, that having management systems in place or programs in place helps a lot. And if you are fast in adapting, like in this case, we have an application to do behavioral observation to ensure that safety rules are applied. We immediately use this technology to ensure that the new rules are in place and people are aware. So the principle is very simple. Each person protects everyone. So in this case, a mistake of the individual can be reflected in the entire community. So it was fast, it was unexpected. Nobody was really prepared for this, even if we found already some guidelines, some instruction. We put together our special situation management with all the leaders of the company, try to understand how to minimize the impact on the person, how to stay safe in a phase where everybody was struggling. You heard before the difficulties in getting the PPEs, in understanding sometimes what was the right thing to do. So this is in common with all of us, I guess also for most of the people that are attending this webinar. So there are a few learnings. There are many things that we learn in these difficult days. And a lot of behaviors that had to change very fast. Maybe all of you heard that you need 3 weeks to get an habit. Here we had to get the habits in few days. Otherwise, the risk was we are going to close the business. So we need to learn a new EHS skill. So I think that there are also good things that we need to remember. Because we need to keep the attention high, and this high attention will stay with us for the next coming months, because for sure the virus will be over when we will find the vaccination and the cure for the people that are infected. I think that in these days we saw that the culture of care, so, and this is very close to my heart and to the Vision Zero principles, that we need to take care of the people. And we saw how good we are when we are in a so difficult situation, because we know that it will be either a collective victory or a collective failure. So there will not be an individual that will win or a community that will lose. This goes together. And I think here on this caring topic, there is a lot of learning to keep for the time being. So on the other side, the risk profile of the company didn't change for the ordinary processes. The risk is still there. What I observe in these 2 months, February and January, that the incident rate is improving a lot, suddenly. Okay, you say there is less people in the factory, but the incidence rate is variable. So we saw that also with less exposure hours, these index are going down. And of course, we need to be careful, because also stupid things like providing first aid to people that are injured could be something different from the past. So, and we need to consider that the usual risks are still there in a much more complex environment. So this is in a nutshell how a large multinational company with 73,000 plus employees is dealing now in these difficult times. Before we saw going back to normal business as unusual. So I think that we will never go back to normal. This would be a missed opportunity. There are so many learnings that we need to maintain because the new reality will be different. And I hope that will be better for everyone. And finding more collaboration when we have to implement our EHS programs, and getting if possible, some good memories from these difficult times.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Gianluca, for also keeping the time frame for your presentation and for sharing very, very practical approaches. And it's interesting because one of our first meetings of the council, you remember Tina from Novo Nordisk gave a presentation about behavioral design. And your presentation is almost entirely about behavioral design. So how to try to make sure that people are actually also guided towards a more safe and healthy behavior. So it was quite interesting to see your cases. And also, I must say, I fully agree with you that our collective ability to nurture and importantly, to maintain this new culture of caring for each other, which is happening right now across the countries, across the workplaces, I think will be not only decisive for winning this fight against the pandemic and reducing the casualties, so to say, but also, as you line out, it will be really decisive for the future of Vision Zero and our ability really to have this caring culture as part of our DNA, so to say. So thank you very much to you. You were our last speaker. So with this, it's my pleasure to hand over the moderating function to Estrella Nieto, who is a professor at CERPIA, which is the Research Center for Corporate Excellence and Innovation of the UPC, and the UPC stands for the Technical University of Barcelona. And she's also a community manager at prevencionintegral.com, which is one of the largest international online communities for experts in the prevention of occupational risk. So she has been looking at all the Q&As that have been communicated during the last 1.5 hours, and we are very excited to look forward to what questions you have identified for the speakers. So the floor is yours, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Hans. Well, thank you to all of the speakers. The chat had been very active, and I have several questions for them. So the first one is para Gianluca Capodimonti. It's from Ricardo Escofet from Spain, from the company Traflac. And they say, have you managed to extrapolate the knowledge from your research and development teams of cigar filters into the field of masks?
Yes, so we did some tests. It's still ongoing. So this was the first idea that came out. We have a filtering technology available, and masks are big filters that we are putting on our nose and mouth. So there are projects ongoing. At the moment, I can tell you, it's not an industrial secret. Toacetate is not the best filtration material, but there are prototypes that my colleagues in R&D are working with, because we would like to develop this technology for donation.
Okay, very much. Next one is to Jose Manuel from Fiona, and it comes from John Lee from Korea. Teach him, what is the gender policy related to decision making of who is or is not recommended to work from home?
Okay, well, I suppose as is making reference to the vulnerable employees, no? At the end, as I said, the policy in the company is if a person is part of one of the groups of vulnerable employees that are defined by the Health Department of Spain, then if that person can keep working from home, they will be working from home until, well, I don't want to say a time because it's difficult right now, no? But we will say that they will keep working home until the situation gets to the new normality. We can say like that. And then in case that person, because of their activity, cannot work from home, then they need to go to a medical service, our medical service in case it's in the main office, or all the medical service that we have around in Spain, to be defined if that person can go to work or needs to remain at home. Okay, so is part of what the Spanish government give the opportunity to all companies, you know, to be sure that all vulnerable employees, if they cannot work from home, then they need to keep or stay at home. So it's defined by the government. We can say like that.
Yeah, thank you. Next one is to Christopher from Tesco, and it comes from Roger Lopez from Nova Dimensió, Spain. Are you encouraging the purchase of recyclable protection material at Tesco?
Are we encouraging the purchase of protective equipment, did you say? Is that correct? So our approach to protective equipment has been centered around social distancing and the following of public health guidelines. So as an organization, we make protective equipment available to our colleagues who should choose to use it in different circumstances, but in a way that helps them themselves feel more comfortable around their workplace. So the key being ensuring that we have adequate risk assessment in place and protective measures to prevent our colleagues coming into contact with the potential virus. But in terms of protective equipment, it's available for those who choose to use it, but we're very much following the government guidelines around that measure.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next one is to Lars Hoffman from Siemens. It comes from Jorge Arriaga from Microbot Chile. Redundant or automatable workstations have been discovered during this quarantine.
Lars is not connected. Lars
is not connected. Well, then I pass to another one. It could be to that one. Another one to Jose Manuel.
Yes.
How do you security the quantity and quality of adequate PPEs? Have you noticed a change in behavior and accident levels?
Well, the first question is hard to give like a direct answer. No, as we said, it depends on the week. To be honest, like because some weeks we are able to buy the amount of PPE that we need, but for example, I cannot answer that question in 2 weeks view or 3 weeks because you know the market right now is changing a lot, and what we are trying, of course, is to buy as much as we can. I mean, if, for example, just putting an example, if we use 1 million masks a week, if we can buy 3, 4, 5, 6 million, then we buy that. In 5 we did, no? What we are trying is to keep and have a proper stock to be sure that, for example, if the same happen in 2 weeks, at least we have that stock. Also, taking into account one thing, no? And I said other thing in my presentation. We have it's not an issue, no? It's something logic. Right now, the priority is to provide PPE to the medical centers. I mean, the hospitals or all the ones that take care of COVID-19 patients, no? So we cannot really stock as much as we can. Okay, we can say no. It is illegal right now in Spain to make a stock more than you need, more or less in 2 weeks. I mean, you need to justify that stock. So again, sorry if I cannot give a straight answer, but it depends on the day, we can say, or the situation, no? And the second one, could you repeat it again, please?
The second one, it's about, have you noticed a change in behavior and accident levels?
Yes, as well as all my colleagues said, it's true that accident levels are rising down. We don't know yet if, of course, it's the affection that we have less employees working. We have some activities have been stopped because even with PPE, we cannot comply with the social distance and all that requirements. So I think it's still early to say that that the crisis have changed the behavior of our employees, reducing the accidents. I think that for that we will need to wait a few months, and I'm pretty sure that after that, so we are in this, we can say again, the new normality, the new normal work. We can evaluate, but the only thing that changed, and I believe all my colleagues also have the same experience, that sometimes we need to fight with employees to make them use the PPE, and currently it's the opposite. Sometimes it's the PPE are the employees who can say, okay, where is my mask? Where is my gloves? And so it's something good, okay, because that means that the behavior regarding PPE of all employees change, no? So that could be one of the positive things, no, that Hans maybe was asking, no, and also I think was Chris or Lars, no, that this crisis will bring also good things, no. That will be one of them, no, that some people realize that PPE protect. I know that it sounds a little bit strange, but it's something that is happening currently, for example.
Yeah, thank you. Next one, it's goes to Lars Hoffman. Lars.
No, Lars is not connected.
No, it's not. Then another one to Chris. Francesco.
Hi.
It comes from Alec to Switzerland. How did you manage to have your team accepting to be exposed to potential contamination customers?
So I think it's similar to my previous answer, actually. I won't talk necessarily about Tesco policy, but within the retail sector more broadly, I think we've been very lucky that government guidelines have set out some clear principles around social distancing measures, which extended to not just measures around keeping people apart, but also protective measures that you can put in place to ensure that you've got the confidence of both your customers and your colleagues, such as putting up perspex screens in front of checkouts, minimizing the flow of customers into a retail store, so ensuring that you've not got an overcapacity of people in one place. And in doing so, obviously that makes the social distancing measures much easier to achieve. And from a colleague perspective, and I've seen this across all businesses, the important thing is to ensure that you've got the right communication in place with your teams, to give them the confidence to speak up, make sure that you're listening to their concerns and reacting to them, but equally ensuring that they're conscious and aware of the plans that you're putting in place, and that they're there and designed to protect them. So that's sort of our approach, and more broadly across the industry, both in the UK and in Asia, communication being the key, I think. And thankfully our colleagues have all stepped up to that challenge and are confident and comfortable with the solutions that we've provided for them.
And there is another one for you. It comes from Jordi Oliveira from Spain, and he wants to know, how do you offer personal mental health services during the crisis to 400,000 staff across the United Kingdom?
So there's lots of tools that we've used as an organization, using external platforms which we give people access to, and also engaging very closely with our people team and our HR team to ensure that we're communicating the benefits of good mental health and well-being, and providing practical tools for colleagues across the entire organization to be able to access, centered around what may be their own personal specific circumstances, so that it's confidential and it can support across a range of subjects. So again, it's about communication, but giving people access to great platforms that provide that level of support.
Thank you very much, Christopher. There is another question to Gianluca. Will the new normal include physical distances and other preventing measures? How to sustain a culture if carrying and spread into the other risk areas?
This is an interesting question. I think that we need to keep some memories what happened now. So what I would do, I would try to speak to the people about the risk perception. Now everybody perceives that we are at risk. And in the risky area, I think this is something that normally happens. And I would use just some reference to the near past, that this culture works if everybody is taking care of each other. And I would make a simple analogy with these times, with the difference that unfortunately in the high risk areas, we are always in COVID situation, where we need even more than other places to help each other. So in our business, we have a few high risk activities. Let's say the risk profile is medium low in general. And this is sometimes a big struggle because you need to convince people to take care of something that they don't perceive to be risky. So for us, sometimes a deep cut is already high severity, let's say, injury. What I would mean just remembering how we did during the COVID times, and just keep the message that the situation is not that different. Something can come unexpected, and only if we work all together, helping each other, we can maintain a high level of safety in our factories, in our workplaces. So
thank you. There is another one, and it's for all of the speakers. It comes from Natalia Cabrerizo. She wants to know, do you think that the health and safety measures that we have been applying in business these days, like social distances, work from home, etc., they are going to stay in place permanently? Gianluca, if you want.
Oh, I think that this is a question for the experts, the scientists. Permanently, it's always something risk-based. The moment that the virus will have a vaccination, that we know that our antibodies are robust enough to avoid the second infection, most probably we can go back. But I think I'm not entitled to tell you yes or no. For sure, there will be a long wave for these behaviors before they will disappear. So people will get used, and I think that somebody will be skeptical. Somebody maybe will not trust the systems that are going to come later on, worried that there is still a lot of things that we don't know about this virus, and they will try to keep these distancing behaviors as much as they can. So here we need to trust the scientists, the scientific evidences that the virus is over. This can take many, many months. I would say years, because okay, as all of you are reading, you are studying about this virus. It seems to be a bit different compared to the other infections that we had in the past. So I think that also the solution will take a bit longer.
Yes. And Jose Manuel, what do you think about? Do you think this measure will be permanently stay in place?
In the same line as Gianluca said, you know, first of all, I think that there will be things that will stay, things that will not, but we don't know when. That's maybe the tricky part of the question, no? What I'm sure is that I think it will be more than we think. I mean, some people, for example, now that at least in Spain, we're starting with the summer. Now we're starting to hear, no, but this is a winter virus, so summer will be nice. Or so, you know, some people think that, for example, July will be a normal month. So when clearly, I mean, when you stop a country like almost 2 months, clearly means that it will not be normal in 2 months later. Okay, so two things: that we are going to keep like this more than we think. I think that's clear. And the second one is not everything will stay, and now I'm speaking from the construction side, okay? Because as Gianluca said, it will be a moment where in this case, the scientists, not us, of course, will make a different, a point where, okay, right now the illness or everyone has the vaccination or something like that, so things can get almost to normal. And I said that because there are activities in construction, as I said in the presentation, that currently are stopped. I mean, there are activities that we are not doing because we can't, or we cannot provide the safety to our employees, so they are cancelled. So I believe it will be a moment that, or we find a new procedure that things change, or they will we will go back to the part of the normality. Okay, we can say in that way.
Yes, maybe in Spain, for example, the social distances is difficult to maintain, but yes. The working at home, yes, maybe it will be increasing, not? That's
no, there's a reason it will. I said that even after the virus, or we can control the virus, no, there will things that will stay, and other things that they will disappear.
Thank you. And Chris, what do you think about?
So I would agree with everything that my colleagues have said. I think there are two aspects to this question of social distancing. And the first one is clearly dependent on a vaccine being produced, and should and when that happens, and we all hope it will, there could be a formal relaxation of the social distancing requirements in terms of the physical aspects. But I think that the less predictable outcome is the long-term imprint that this crisis and the experience that we've had will have on just the general public and all of our minds, and therefore it could be that there is a longer term attitude and behavior which is somewhat representative of those social distancing measures that we've seen come about. So I think there are parts of it that's less predictable, but from the behavior perspective, I think this event will have a strong impact on many people, and the way that we go about our daily lives in future may be different, regardless of physical measures being imposed upon us.
Yes, thank you, Christopher.
Thank you.
There is another question. I think you can also answer, all of you. And for example, Christopher, if you want to be the first, what has to been your most surprising experience when managing the pandemic, positive and negative?
Gosh. So from a positive experience, I think just the ownership and collaboration of everybody that we work with has been outstanding, and it's really brought into focus the care aspect of what we do, the way that we support our communities, our colleagues, our customers, and work with our supply chain. Has been, just an amazing thing to have been a part of, and I think we've as a retail industry in the UK and across the globe, we've been tested to levels that we've never experienced. But the organisations in that space have really stepped up to the challenge, and I'm personally quite proud to have been part of that. And I think that collaboration is what's really brought us through this whole thing. I think the negative, the standout negative for me would be how you retain that continuity of safety when people are feeling scared and worried, both customers, colleagues, just in daily life. There's we couldn't have managed it any differently or any better, but I think you know, that has had and will have a long-standing impact on the way that we perceive our own sort of self-being, and you know, I'm sure it will be there for some time.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And Gianluca?
For me, similarly to Christopher, the good part is that we are really all connected. As soon as the problem appear in the magnitude that it is, I see collaboration was vertical, horizontal, any direction. So with other companies in the same areas, try to find solutions together. People starting to provide you with many ideas, what to do, how to do. So this was generating a huge energy. So on the negative side, despite the facts and the visible struggle we saw in many countries, there were still people that were underestimating the risk. And sometimes I'm wondering that the same people are those that are taking unnecessary risks in the workplace. And before we say we need to use this lesson to develop this caring culture, but we need to also be aware that there are people that are very difficult to shape. Because also in these extreme conditions, you see that there are still, in my opinion, too many people that they don't have the same risk perception. And here is not a matter of being brave or being superior to the others. I think that it's a bit of stupidity in the system that we need to consider. Yeah.
Certainly, yes. And what about Jose Manuel?
Well, if we can't take a positive theme from this crisis, I would say that, of course, we always say, safety first when you enter in a workplace, but it was something that was not really in society, with this crisis, now we have that safety first also in the social media and in the news, in newspaper, the radio, whatever you put on at home, I believe we need to use this wave because they're giving us an opportunity to be also part of the society, as well as, for example, environment started to be part of the society with all these climate change fights that we had just before this crisis. That was maybe the main topic that everyone was discussing. So I believe that's has a positive thing to regarding health and safety. And I believe if we can, in this case, we should keep that wave in the society, because that will help the health and safety at the workplace, in general. More than negative, I will say difficult, and I will be aligned with Chris in this case, that in this crisis, we are not just managing risk, we are managing fear. So at the end, more in this case, our colleagues, our health and safety colleagues that are in the workplaces, working day to day with employees, they're having a lot of, we can say sad stories, people is dying also, and this is reason I made reference in the presentation that we need to have at the same level as the evaluation of the risk, the mental well-being, be sure that all of our employees are in good condition to be sure that they are focused, as much as we can, because everyone is focused right now in the illness. But I believe that is I will not say negative, I will say more difficult.
It is. I have another question for you from Gabriela Moreno, and she wants to know if are you giving daily a mask for every worker, or it is reusable?
To me?
Yes.
Or to every, it depends of the mask. It depends of the mask, okay? Although in Spain, for example, the health department submit just for this crisis. First of all, we are allowed to use a mask without the CE mark, okay? Just temporarily for this crisis. It was a lack of so that's, we can say, open a little bit the market, okay, at least for a while. And then also they establish we can say a protocol where it allows to use a non-reusable mask for more than 1 day, okay? Taking into account that it's a lack of mask. Of course, that helps when you have a lack of stock of the mask, but also give us another work, because if you allow to an employee to use a mask more than 1 day, you need to be sure that that mask is inspected by a competent person the following day. I mean, you cannot say yeah, the government say that the mask can be used for more than 1 day, so let's use it a month. No, it's not like that. It's you use it 1 day. If the following day is in good condition, then okay, the employee can reuse it. No, but it's a again, it's a tricky protocol from the government, because it gives us the opportunity to reuse PPE, but again, that can have a really bad consequence that we need to control too. So the answer is, if we have it, of course we provide it. If they need it, okay, because as Chris said, not everyone, or currently, and I can say construction or other different business, they need a mask to perform their job, their task.
And Christopher, can you answer the same question? Are you giving daily a mask to every worker, or there are reusables?
So there's different situations in place in different territories around the globe. So you'll probably know that in Asia, for example, many governments have imposed the wearing of masks, both out in the community and in when you're shopping and when you're going about your business. So we make masks available for colleagues who should wish to use it in the areas across all areas, but it's a difficult one to answer with specifics, because it's down to local legislation. But we're following the WHO guidelines and those of Public Health England, and masks is just one part of a whole raft of protective measures that are in place to ensure that people are afforded the right level of protection. So it's not the only thing, it's complementary to lots of other measures. So I wouldn't say, you know, everybody there's a mandatory wearing of masks in every part of our organization, same as my colleagues, but in some businesses it is, because it's part of local government rules.
Okay, thank you, Christopher.
Estrella, just one thing, because I saw just a question related maybe what I said. Because
Okay.
I think Jose Javier is saying about that if we train all the employees in clean the mask, and I forgot to mention that of course we, in case a mask can be reused, it needs to follow in this case disinfection procedure to be sure that of course the employee who use it is be sure that the mask is clean. Okay, but as Chris says, that's the thing. In Spain, they allow us just because of this lack of PPE. But for example, this what I'm saying in other countries is not possible. So sometimes it depends of the country and the activity, and because sometimes some employees they need the mask just maybe 1 hour a day. So it's not the same for the ones that they need it 8 hours. So it's a difficult situation, but all. We have the protocol on place, including the part of the cleaning and disinfection.
Thank you. And Gianluca.
I'm in line with my colleagues. I'm in line with my colleagues. So we are at the end. So I think we already said everything.
Yeah.
So
stop.
So I have some more questions.
No,
I know. I know. There was very interesting meeting.
No, but we have to stop because we are already late, and we will going to answer some of the questions, because we have received many more, and we'll distribute them to the different experts, so you can give your answer directly, because we cannot expand it much more. We have to close because it's what we promised, and people are very busy. So with this, I really would like to thank you very much for the moderation. There have been lots of questions, and I think this is a good indication of a successful webinar, and also I think another proof of the quality of the presentations that have been given and the interest in what you have been talking about. So we are now approaching the end of this first of our new series of webinars dedicated to Vision Zero in times of COVID-19. Well, if we ask ourselves as a profession, have we been appropriately prepared for such a pandemic? I think the answer is clearly no, we haven't. So it's also food for thought for us, who should be at the forefront of risk assessment and looking into the future, because there have been indications of that the next big risk for our society will be pandemics. But like the rest of society, we were busy with our short-term issues. So I think this is something to take with. But then I also think that with your presentations today, we have seen very clearly that we can successfully overcome this. Now that we can act very firmly and strictly and immediately, that we are very innovative, that we can create good links, and that we can actually start now developing the right protocols, and that people actually also are observing them. There's a PPE issue, which absolutely has to be an issue we have to address much more profoundly. And I think this is not just for our sector, this is in general, because what's happening in the healthcare sector in some countries is really catastrophic. Now, in Spain alone, there are more than 30,000 healthcare workers have been infected at work as regards their work. So I think the positive is that actually the pandemic can help us bring about a stronger prevention culture based on care, that we care for each other. And I think this is excellent news. And it finally, in a way, it's a dramatic way, but I think Jose Manuel was quite right that maybe finally the issue of protection of risks at work or health problems at work and in general get the same attention now as some of the environmental issues have reached, and that we are as practical in terms of the solutions to these issues than we also have learned in the environmental field. Because sometimes we had a tendency to make our issues too complicated for people to act on. And I think here, in this case, I think these are really straightforward issues that everybody can actually handle and implement. I would like to just say, before announcing the next webinar, just refer to that there are some excellent websites and information that, sorry, I have a problem with my PowerPoint. Let me try again. A moment, I'll be there in a second. So there are in particular two sources that I would like to refer to. On the Vision Zero global website, there is actually Corona advice for Vision Zero companies and partners, a very detailed summary of advice given by international organizations and national regulation, which I can recommend. And also, this is a very novel Corona prevention monitor that has been developed by the ESA on initiative of its Special Commission on Prevention, which brings up-to-date news as regards how the coronavirus is being addressed from a prevention point of view. So just two recommendations here. And let me see the other way, the final one. So, and here we are. So the next webinar has already been decided. It will take place in 2 weeks' time, exactly at the same hours as this one. And again, we have very, very exciting speakers with us who will share their experience from our Vision Zero Business Council. We have Philippe Delbecq from L'Oréal, we have Stefan Bürkner from Daimler, we have Elena Kompasenko from Zarubezhnev, and we have Jesper Kragh-Nielsen from Novo Nordisk, who are going to share their experiences in 2 weeks' time. So please keep tuned. And you will find, and this was a question raised also during this session, there was a question raised, can we get access to the presentations that were given? And I just want to confirm that on the Vision Zero Business Forum website, you will find all presentations, and we will inform, of course, also by this channel where you can find the presentations. The whole webinar has been recorded live on YouTube, so it's also there where you can find. again, the presentations, if you want to share them with colleagues at work or in other places. So all the information will be readily available for you. And with this, no more than thank all of you, once again, our presenters, the moderators, but in particular, the audience that has been very faithful, has stayed with us. This is very encouraging for us. So we look forward to see you in 2 weeks' time. So thank you very much, and take care and be safe out there.